Back when I was a teenager, around 12 to 14 years old, my relatives, my uncle and aunt from my dad's side, had this campsite at a large lake. It was technically on their property, but it was more of a shared space in the neighborhood. My uncle and aunt didn't care so much about the fact that people were coming and going on their land. In fact, they enjoyed the spontaneous company. Also, it was nice, and was only a few hours or so from my hometown. The campground was relatively small. It was no big fancy campground that you would see in Hollywood movies. But I liked the smallness of it, and thought it was nice and cozy. It really made me feel like I was at home, somewhere that I belonged. I knew the people who lived by the large lake and around the campsite, and they knew us too. Everyone liked it that way. And again, it felt like a really small-knit community. On that particular day, me and my friend Carly were hanging out near the water, chilling and chatting. It was just us two alone, sitting on the docks, when suddenly a man in his late 50s, or even in his 60s, appeared seemingly out of nowhere. His clothing was nothing special. He had a plain white shirt and long brown pants, and had relatively long hair. There was nothing threatening or alarming about him. Us, being friendly and all, responded to his greetings and made some small talk. After a while, he came up beside me and sat down. He began asking more personal questions, like how old we were, how long have we known each other, if either of us were in a relationship, etc. At one point, he begins asking us about my parents and who they were. Being stupid, I naively told him the name of my dad, which, in hindsight, I should never have. He told me that he knew my parents and that they were childhood friends. I thought that's quite odd since I never even seen or heard of him before. But again, being a dumb teenager, me and Carly continued talking to him. He then points out to the distance and mentions that he has a boat on the lake, and if any one of us wanted to go somewhere, he could take us. He starts mentioning how there are a lot of islands and caves situated on the lake, even some with gold and jewelry in them, and that he wouldn't mind taking us out there and showing us around. At first, we were quite skeptical about it, because we had never heard of secret islands or secret caves from my aunt or uncle or parents. But he persisted, and even told us that he owns an island himself, just at the other side of the large lake. It sounded too good to be true. Carly and I stared at each other, all giddy and happy, thinking that there were real secret caves, potentially with treasure in them. Imagine being so rich that we could quit school and never work a day in our lives. Without a second thought, we both agreed to go in with him. That was when my aunt arrived with her car. She yelled at us to get going and that we had to be home at 7 p.m. latest. It was already way past 7 at this point. Saddened, me and Carly told the man that we couldn't go tonight because we had lost track of time. He was, however, very understanding and told us that he could meet up with us in the future if we wanted to go. With that being said, Carly and I left and joined my aunt in the car. The moment we sat down, my aunt begins interrogating us, asking who in the world is that man and what did he want from us. The disturbing thing is, when we told her everything that the man told us, my aunt looked at us in awe and shock. She sat there speechless for a few moments before sternly informing us that no one in our family, or anyone that our family knows, owns a boat by the lake, and that there are absolutely no caves or islands on that lake. Unsurprisingly, Carly and I got lectured by my mom and dad when we got home that night. My dad told us scary stories about kids being lured away by strangers and never being found by the parents as well. Since then, we were never allowed to go back to the docks without parental supervision. Luckily, since then, we never saw that creepy man. This happened back when I was just a kid. My memory is quite vague, as this was almost over 2 decades ago. It was during summer vacation, and summer school had just begun. We lived in the countryside, and the closest city was not very big. It had small shops run by residents in the city, and the population was nowhere in the millions. Our small town had this party thing going on, and there was a carnival, so there were many tiny flags and stuff hanging around the street lamps and street lights, the things that are used to advertise the carnival. Due to the surge of activity, all my relatives came to visit us. It was a rare occasion, as they never come to visit us, considering the fact that our location is so remote. It wouldn't make sense to come all the way here just to see each other. Well, on this occasion, since there was a carnival, there was a reason to come all the way here and hang out and have some fun at the carnival. They arrived, and we hung out at our house for a few hours before leaving. It was in the evening when we had decided to leave the house. It was great. There were snack areas and drink areas, places where you could purchase food and drinks, and the place lit up at night. At the very end of the carnival, opposite the entrance, there was a slide with a ball pit. So me and my younger cousin went there to play for an hour and a half. We then rode on the carousel for what felt like an hour. Finally, after all that fun, we got tired and went back to the ball pit to find our parents. But they weren't there. All of a sudden, someone dashes past us and screams at the top of their lungs, "He's got a knife." People began running all over the place, scrambling to get somewhere safe. It was hectic, it was chaotic. My younger cousin looked at me, worried, holding back tears, but unable to say anything. Since I was the older one, I had to be responsible and look after him. I told my younger cousin to not run around so much because we were so small, we would get trampled. Instead, we should hide in the ball pit. At that moment, it seemed like the only logical thing we could do. We were too small to jump over the fences that bordered the carnival, and we would most likely get separated. The best thing we could do was to wait it out. At least, that was what I thought. We ran and hid inside the ball pit, trying our best not to make a sound. I told my younger cousin to not move at all, and to basically play hide and seek. I held my breath and tried to control my breathing, making sure that I did not accidentally breathe out too loud or inhale too loud. I made sure that my arms and legs did not flail. I had to lay there like a statue. But in all honesty, I didn't know what we were doing. Maybe we were being stupid, as we were just kids. But I felt so calm during the whole ordeal. It felt as if we were actually playing hide and seek, except the seeker was incredibly dangerous and our lives were on the line. I guess we didn't grasp the severity of the whole situation. At that moment, I felt like we were safe. I felt like nothing bad would happen to us. The air, the weather was nice. As I was contemplating that, loud footsteps became audible. Things were falling to the ground like cans and food. The air became heavy. Metal could be heard scraping against the floor. That distinctive metal on concrete sound you hear in movies. He walked calmly, slowly. We could hear each and every footstep he made. I covered my mouth and fear began creeping in. His footsteps got louder and louder as he approached our direction. I thought that maybe if we didn't move at all, not even breathe, he would miss us. I thought that maybe he might see us as kids and realize that he was being a moron and not hurt us. I tried my best to keep my mind occupied with something else. All of a sudden, we heard sirens, and we hear someone's voice over a megaphone. They told the person to surrender and come out with their hands up. The man began running away as his footsteps became faster and farther as it faded into the distance. Me and my cousin stayed in there for the longest time ever, not knowing whether or not it is safe to come out. We waited and waited until we heard what sounded like our parents' voice in the background, pleading for our safety. We jumped out of the ball pit and ran to our parents. I have never been so glad to be in their arms. We don't know what happened to that man, nor did we find out what his motive was. As we were still kids, we never got to know any details regarding that incident, even years after. We never got to know if anyone got injured or killed, or if it could have been possibly some next level prank or something. To this day, I will never know. But I hope that I would never have to meet this person. Years ago, I started dating a guy. I just came out of a bad relationship and got attached to him way too quickly. But everything seemed to be going well. That's until he started to take up all of my free time. He would wait for me after school, spend the evening with me, and often ask to sleep at my place. Sometimes he would even text me late at night that he was outside and wanted me to let him in. I often did. Me, the kid, madly in love. Skip 3 months later, we've been dating for half a year now. I'm 15 and he's 17, and he asks me to marry him. I'm shocked, but a 15-year-old me says yes. I regretted that decision pretty fast. First, it means nothing, really. We were way too young, and second, he took even more of my time. Skip 2 months to summer vacation. He's been basically living at my place for a week straight now. I realized how tired of him I was. I wouldn't even talk to my friends anymore, just him. So, we talked. I didn't want to break up, scared to hurt him. He said he would be better, surprise surprise. He wasn't. During the next 4 months, it was on and off. I would dump him, but take him back shortly after. Why? He kept telling me he was going to hurt himself if I left. I felt trapped. Finally, after I found out, he sent me a self-harm picture from Google Images and claimed it as his own. I ended it for good. Or so I thought. He started texting me endlessly, so I blocked him. His friends too, when they started to try and make me feel bad. I had about a month of peace. I started seeing him in the bus to my school very often. I assumed it was a coincidence. After all, our schools were pretty close to each other. But it was just the beginning. I started seeing him more and more, walking behind me or sitting at the table next to me. He never talked, he just watched. One day, I got tired and confronted him. He denied, of course, but I got peace for a couple of days. That's when the worst happened. At the time, I lived in an apartment building on the 3rd floor, but just under my window were the emergency stairs. From there, you could see into my room if I didn't have curtains. I often used it to leave my house during the night, and my ex knew about it. He used it to come to my place late at night so my parents wouldn't know. Around 2 a.m., I woke up. I thought I heard something. I got up and looked around. I figured it must have been my imagination, but then I heard a metallic noise. I rushed to the window, and that's when I saw him, my ex, running down the middle stairs. I was panicked, and I woke up my parents. My dad got really angry and called my ex's house. He explained the situation to his mom and hung up. I still cross paths with my ex since we live in the same part of town, but he avoids me now. I've had peace ever since. Dear ex, let us never meet again.